Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for coming. I'm Patrick Curran. I'm chair of the Java Community Process Organization. And welcome. I'm going to talk briefly about what we're up to in the JCP, what's coming next. But just in case you may not know, the JCP is the way in which, the organization through which Java is evolved. Things don't come down from on high like Moses from the mountain with the Ten Commandments. Instead, Java is developed collectively. This is not Windows. With Windows, what you get is what Microsoft decides you're going to get. With Java, what we get is what all of us collectively create through the Java Community Process Organization. We develop standards. We call them JSRs, Java Specification Requests. And these are formal specifications for particular Java technologies. And we do these collectively as a collaborative effort. It's not just Oracle, but Oracle's big competitors such as IBM and Red Hat, members of the open source community such as Eclipse, individual developers, big corporations, small corporations. We all work together to develop and to evolve Java. And I'm going to talk about some changes that we've been making over the last few years and are continuing to make the process more open, more collaborative, and to make it easier for people like yourselves to join in and to participate. As I said, it's a formal, documented development process. I won't go into the details. If you're interested, you can look it up online, search for the process document on JCP.org. But basically, there's a formal submission, a proposal to do a particular revision or a new technology. There are votes taken by the executive committee of the JCP. That's like the board of directors. There are formal reviews, public publications. We publish it on JCP.org. And eventually, after it's gone through the entire process, there's a formal approval at the end of the process, and the technology is released and then is available for people to implement. I'm not going to talk about that. I am going to talk about how the JCP itself is organized. We have a couple of documents that together I call our Constitution. The first of them is called the Java Specification Participation Agreement, complicated name. It's basically a legal contract between people who join the JCP and Oracle, and its purpose is to address intellectual property grants and the terms under which the output of the process, that is not just the specification, but also two other things. Every expert group that develops a JSR must deliver not only the spec, but also a complete implementation of the spec that we call a reference implementation. The purpose of that is to prove that the spec is implementable and to flesh out problems in the spec as you actually develop it to make sure that the spec is accurate and unambiguous and so on. And also a test suite that we call a TCK, Technology Compatibility Kit. Other people would call it a conformance test suite. And this is a set of tests that can be used to verify that implementations of the spec actually conform. So these are the three things that must be developed as we push a JSR through the process. And as I said, the JSPA addresses legal matters. The process document, which I referred to earlier, is the document that defines in detail all of this process. And that talks about the governance of the organization, the way we're structured, voting, and so on, and the processes that are used to submit and to develop the JSRs, and the obligation to produce the reference implementation, the TCK. So these two documents together constitute effectively the constitution of the organization, and the way we modify them and change the way we operate is to behave as if these were a specification for the organization itself. We file a JSR to say we're going to modify one or other of these documents. We form an expert group, as we do for other JSRs. I act as the chair of that expert group, and the executive committee of the JCP acts as the members of the expert group. And otherwise, this whole process, it follows the same process as if we were developing a technical JSR for a formal Java technology. For the past few years, we've been working on a series of 4 JSRs to modify the way the JCP works. Collectively, we call them JCP.Next. The first of them was JSR 348. And before we ran that JSR, people used to think that this was the way that expert groups operated. Bunch of guys, typically guys, in a room behind closed doors, not letting people know what they're up to, and basically at the end of the entire process, a spec would pop out, but you would have no idea why decisions were made, what discussions had been taking place, and so on. So this JSR said no more of that, no more smoke-filled rooms. Everything must be done in the open. We want public issue tracker, public mailing lists. We want you to publish all your documents. We must respond to members of the public when they log issues and so on. We finished this JSR pretty quickly. It was very successful, and we had a lot more involvement from members of the developer community, and in particular from Java user groups who founded the Adopt a JSR program directly as a result of this initiative. The second, I'll skip over the second JCP.Next JSR because that basically just changed the way the executive committee was formed. That was an easy one. The third one is a big and complicated, scary one, JSR 358. We started this years ago. We're still working on it. This is the one that's going to modify the JSPA, the legal agreement. This hasn't been modified since 2002. When it was written, the world was very different. The assumption was basically that Sun Microsystems would do all the work, or some consultation with others, and they would license their stuff to other people who would port it and modify it to create their own implementations. These days, that's not the way people expect to operate. We want collaboration, we want open source licensing, so we need to modify this document. But we've got to be careful. It's an old document. It's like maintaining legacy code. If you're not careful, you're going to break something. So we must be very careful. Plus, because it's a legal document, all the lawyers for all of the JCP executive committee members are involved. And whenever you get more than one lawyer in a room, it takes a long time to reach decisions. This is important because it addresses intellectual property rights, making sure that the terms under which people make contributions to the process, that we have the rights that we need, and therefore we can make sure that when we incorporate stuff into JSRs and release them as implementations of Java, that people will know that they can use them without somebody popping up out of left field saying, I own intellectual property in there, I'm going to charge you royalties for patents or whatever. Our goals with this are to continue to maintain our strong compatibility requirements, to embrace open source licensing and development processes, to make sure that developers have access to the test suites, to simplify the IP flow, and in general just to increase, to the extent that we can, ensure we have even more openness and transparency. So strong compatibility, as today, JSRs will have a specification license that says all implementations must conform to the spec and must pass the TCK. We want to make sure that all reference implementations are developed collaboratively through open source development processes and that they're released under open source licenses. We want to make sure that developers who participate in those open source projects have access to the test suite so that they can verify their changes. And to the extent that we can, we want to simplify the IP flow, the way that intellectual property contributions flow from those who make them to the spec leads. This is still ongoing, that JSR, but we realized it was going to take us a long time to finish, so we spun off some simpler changes into yet another JSR called JSR 364, which addresses basically membership. We want to make sure that it's even easier for individuals to join the JCP. Today, if you want to join, you have to sign that full JSPA, which is a 12-page legal document. If you don't get a lawyer to read it, you probably ought to. And of course, you don't have lawyers. And you have to ask your employer's permission to join. We're going to create a new membership class we call Associate Member. This will have a much simpler membership agreement. I wanted it to be one page, but the lawyers wouldn't let me. But the essence of it is just one page, and you should be able to understand it. You don't have to ask permission from your employer. And the principal benefit that you would get from joining as an associate is the possibility of formal recognition for contributions that you make to a JSR. Today, the only way that you can get formally recognized as a contributor is to be a member of the expert group, and that's a big time commitment, requires significant technical expertise, and most individuals don't have it's not feasible. People do participate through Adopt-a-JSR and similar programs, and after we introduce this new membership class, people who have contributed in that way will be able to get their names listed on the JSR page on JCP.org as a formal contributor to a particular JSR. And as you can imagine, that would be significant help in your career. Imagine two people going for an interview, both of them know technology X. They're both good at it, but one of them can say, not only do I understand this technology, I helped to create it, and if you go to jcp.org and look at the JSR page, you'll see my name there. That's the person who's going to get that job. We're also eliminating fees for corporations. We're fixing a bug in the process, which is that today Java user groups sign the JSPA as members, but most of them aren't legal entities. So in fact, that's a meaningless thing for them to sign. So we're going to create a new membership agreement for Java user groups that will more easily fit with their role as collaborators and partners with Oracle and with the JCP in promoting Java. This JSR is in progress at the moment, and I'm hoping that we'll get it done within the next few weeks. I have, in fact, immediately after this talk, I'm going to go and send some mail to finalize the approval process inside Oracle for these new membership agreements. So I'm hoping this will get finished very quickly. So all of this work's been done in the open, of course. If you go to java.net, you can look us up and see what we're up to. So the result of all this is basically to make sure that the Java community process really is a community process. JSR 348 made it easier for people to observe and to participate. 358 will embrace open source licensing and development processes, and JSR 364 will make it even easier for people to join the JCP. So if there were barriers to participation in the past, what we're doing is eliminating them as to the greatest extent that we can, so that anybody who wants to help can help. So, our pitch is that we want people to get involved. The best way to do it is as a member of a Java user group. So if you're not a member of a JUG, I suggest that you join one or form one. We have more than 50 Java user groups as members at the moment from all over the world. Every time I do this slide, redo it, I have to change the font size and make it smaller to fit the new members. So lots of Java user groups. That's the best way to get involved. Through the Java user groups, you can participate in the Adopt-a-JSR program, which is a way for you to express an interest in a particular JSR, a particular technology, and to offer to help out. And you can do big stuff and small stuff. You don't have to be a super expert to be able to do something useful. A large number of user groups have already participated in this program. Here are their logos for some of them. There are two other ways that you can participate. If you're more interested in the implementation rather than the specifications, you can join OpenJDK and actually work on the reference implementation of Java SE, or you can join Project Glassfish and do the same thing for Java EE. Both of these are open source projects that develop the actual implementations of the platforms. So Java is going to be around for a long, long time. How Java looks in the future is as much up to you as it is to anybody else. I encourage you to participate, and in the process of doing so, you can work on all sorts of nifty stuff like this Java-powered hi-fi kitchen equipment or whatever comes to your mind. So please join us. Thank you for listening. That's it from me.